Welcome to this week's episode of Paranormal Lens, sponsored by Jott-Nyx Paranormal. I'm Jamie Widener. The other guy over there,
Here.
that guy. That's Chad Thomas. How you
Most
doing,
days.
Mr. Thomas? What's shaking, sir?
Oh, we've got 6 more weeks of winter, Jamie.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Damn groundhog. Um, it's 6 weeks either way. Come on, let's be honest
Yeah.
about it.
Yep. A
You know,
groundhog is not going to affect anything. We know that.
nope,
I
nope,
mean,
nope, no,
there's
not at
no,
least on the calendar.
this is true. There's
However,
nothing paranormal about the groundhog.
no, just
Oh,
well, I mean, it's sort of like an urban legendy kind of thing, right?
right.
Folklore, more folklore, perhaps. I guess.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where because there's history, there is therefore tradition, and therefore something I don't know magical about it. We
Mhm.
still do it. It's still fun. If you ever get out to Punxsutawney, PA, anybody's been there, you'll know it's an event. It's a party. Uh, it's quite the thing. Bill Murray covered it very well once upon a time for several days, several times. So
Mhm.
uh, it is interesting to see how big it is and how crazy it gets. So our Octorare Ollie in the kind of the eastern end of Lancaster County here where we are is another one of the prognosticators, but he doesn't have the following. He doesn't have the marketing campaign that Phil
No,
does.
definitely not.
Uh, so sadly, he is. It's still an event, still a fun thing, and
Mhm.
we still pay attention to it. So why not?
Yep. So, yeah, there was that this week. Anything? Do you do anything fun, interesting? I mean, I know you're
No,
ramping up for
no, I
Sunday
didn't.
night.
Not a thing. It's sad. It's really sad, but true. I did nothing.
Yeah.
Some organizational stuff around my house that needed to get done. We had an estimator come and something we're going to fix, and had to clear out some spaces to get a look at it, and that was the highlight.
Mhm.
I did all that, and then wondered why my back hurt the next day. So
Mhm.
figure.
So,
Welcome to this age.
yeah. So Brittany said that technically the groundhog did see a shadow figure. So
He's a shadowy figure. Yeah, he
we got
did.
that going for us. So,
Very cool. Hey, Brittany,
but yeah,
thanks for coming.
yeah.
I see Bert Lynch is here too.
Mhm.
Good evening, Bert. I'm sure
Um,
Heather's not far behind.
yep. What was it? Oh, you're ramping up for the Super Bowl, or we're ramping up for the Super Bowl. We got that on Sunday night.
Yes, sir. Yes, so go Birds.
Uh huh.
Absolutely. It's it's one of those things where the week in between feels weird. Like
Hmm.
playoffs. We had the NFC Championship game, and then that's part of the reason why this weekend felt weird. Because it's been football, football, football for
Uh
those
huh.
who watch, obviously, or sports ball as it's called in our house, because kids don't care. But it's interesting. When you get this close, everybody's buzzing again. Like there
Hmm.
was a lull like last week, and now the
Right.
buzz picked up yesterday and today, and the excitement's building.
Hmm.
And if you don't have a dog in the fight, that's cool. No pun. No, that's a bad pun. Probably say dog in the fight, but um, if you're not invested in either of the teams, I know you just hope they have fun, right?
Yep.
But um, here on the East Coast and especially in the South Central Pennsylvania where we're at, it's all about the Eagles. So go
Yep.
Birds.
Yep. Definitely. So,
So what did you do this weekend, sir? Anything fun in
um,
the week in between here?
I actually had the opportunity to go spend Friday afternoon and evening in Gettysburg. Um,
Never heard of it.
you didn't? No, no. Met up with some friends, made some new friends.
Oh,
Chris Mendez, our friend Chris Mendez, Sean Austin was there.
okay. Yeah.
I met uh, a woman investigator from West Virginia named Mary Ann. Um, she was a really good investigator and enjoyed working with her. And then a couple people from one person from the Jenny Wade house and one person from the haunted orphanage. And Chris and I went in the afternoon, went out to Devil's Den, wandered around in the rain out there, didn't get much. But then we went to the orphanage that evening. Spent I think we started about 8 or 9 o'clock and went till about 2:30. Um, so couple of 6 hours, great investigation, a lot of taping there that I have to go through. um, we did a lot of instant EVPs on some of Chris's and Sean's recorders, and
Okay.
a lot of interesting things there. Probably the first time, that I have some sensitivities, but I don't usually feel the nausea and things like that. When
Right.
I experienced some of that for the first time, like nausea, lightheadedness in the space. I've had a little bit of that before, but just not the overwhelming like sick feeling.
Okay.
I was picking up on some of that, and that was really interesting. Definitely
Wow.
spent some more time there. But met some people who work there. Great place. Not a huge space, but really interesting. Some horrible things that happened there.
Right.
But,
Well, I have a very serious question to ask you.
okay.
So, in your entire experience there with the group, were there any strange noises that caused anyone to flee and knock people over?
No, but we did talk about it.
All right. All right. For those
So.
who know, Chris Mendon's, we were at the West Virginia Penitentiary, and he and Melissa Keller, our founder of the Jott-Nyx Paranormal, and Jerry Keller, her husband, co-founder, uh, where I believe we're all in the kitchen together, in the cafeteria, I should say. And there was a very loud bang in the kitchen part of it, and Chris turned and bolted and literally plowed Melissa over. So
Hmm.
his escapades to getting out of the space. So it was years ago, and it's still funny
Uh-huh.
today as it was then. It's not funny because to Melissa, I guess, because she got ran over. But
She laughs
he owns
about
it.
it now. Yeah.
Chris, we love you. If you're listening, you catch this somewhere along the way. We're not talking crap on you. Nothing but
So,
love for you. But oh my gosh, what a funny thing. So I
yeah.
don't let him forget it either. So I'm glad it
No.
came up there.
No. So, and I didn't run into Andy Andrews. He was out of town,
Oh,
or I would have stopped in to see him because that's where he's
sure.
based now, is
Yes,
Gettysburg. But
absolutely. I know that. That's good.
um,
Yeah,
he was
that's a dear
actually on
friend
his
of
way
mine.
to Hanover for the.
He's at a Hanover Tavern. Yeah, that was a
Yep.
big,
So.
big to do with their Paracon this weekend.
So.
Looks like it was really well attended. I saw some of
Hmm.
the post information about it, some of the stuff that was happening live. Shout out to the team down there, Steve Dills and all. They run a really great show program with everything that the Hanover Tavern offers. And you've been there, of course. We've
Hmm.
had Steve on a couple times. Just great to see that they're thriving and
Yep.
doing really well. So
And
they
maybe next
deserve it.
year, Jamie. Maybe next
Maybe,
year.
I know I said that last year, and it's about this year. So it just falls at a weird time, being at the end of the month in January. It's just difficult to get away. So, but yeah, at least to get down at all. So that's
Hmm.
another wish list and kind of thing. Um, well, speaking of getting away, I'm
Uh-huh.
I'm happy to share with you that I am going to do something this weekend that I have never done before. Um, and it's not quite a bucket list thing, 'cause I don't believe in bucket list per se, because that means you're going to die, kind of thing. Um,
Uh-huh.
I just believe in making plans. But I am going to have the opportunity on Saturday evening to go out to the Ritz Theater in Haddon Township, New Jersey, to partake in their what's it called, the Headliner Series, which is a special event they host a
Hmm.
couple times a year. And the folks that are going to be there for this are Ron and Lourdes with the digital seance experience. I hear they're good at what they do. I'm familiar with their work. Um, of course, we know them very well, very, very well. But I was
Hmm.
so excited to see that they were there, and um, I had time to get there, like on my schedule. So my first time to the Ritz. I've heard so many wonderful things about it. I'm just so excited to get there. Now the weather's just got to cooperate. We got snow,
Hmm.
sleet, freezing rain all weekend here. So um, and like anything else, maybe Jersey might be more fun if I sleep over. I don't know.
Could
Um,
be. Yeah.
maybe I'll find out how to make a left turn somewhere. It is nice having your gas pump for you though. So I don't know.
This
There's
is.
something
Yep.
to it. They figured that out. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to that. So it's great to get out to new, like you did with the orphanage, and it's so nice to get out to new spaces occasionally, just to do something different and something unique. So
Hmm.
Uh, and of course, we have a plan, at least a wish plan, to get back out to the Ritzes, at least to some of us in the team as well later this year. So
Yep.
um, hope to try to help solidify some of that
Yep.
too. So
And
and have some folks come join us perhaps on an episode in the near future. So
yep.
Frankie and his
And
team are there.
yep. And Saturday night, while you're doing that, I'm going to be with Jott-Nyx doing
Yep.
a private residential investigation in the area. So looking
Yep.
forward to seeing what we come up with there.
I
Uh,
was I was torn on this opportunity versus that, so
uh-huh.
I had to go.
Yep. So yeah, it's gonna be. We should have hopefully have some interesting stuff for next week to talk about.
Yep, some things to share, of course, and of course another topic, right?
Yep.
Well, speaking of topics, we probably should get to the point, right?
Yeah.
Um, what is our topic tonight?
I hope you know because you're talking about it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I
Does this
got you.
help? Does that help?
Hey, I know that guy. Well, I don't know him. I wish I did actually. So tonight, we're going to talk about Hans Holzer, and also known as America's first ghost hunter. So, Chad, I have been a fan of Dr. Holzer for quite a long time. Um, his work has spanned decades. Unfortunately, I'll get to the details of him.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, he's passed on, so he might join us tonight. Who knows?
You might.
Um, and I'm fine with that. He's welcome here anytime. But with that, don't tell Steph I said that. Um, that's why you always buy a comfy couch. Okay.
Okay.
Um, but Dr. Holzer has decades and decades of in-field experience that has shaped and formed a lot of what we do today. And
Hmm.
I'll get to a lot of that in a moment. So, but we probably should start back at the beginning, right? It
Hmm.
all started when he was born.
Well, it did, but he also influenced a very great movie, Jamie.
I'll get there. I'll get
Okay.
there.
All right. All right.
Yep, I'll get there. So Hans Holzer was born on January 26, 1920, in Vienna, Austria, and he was an author and a parapsychologist. He actually authored over 140 books on the supernatural, paranormal, and witchcraft, starting with Ghost Hunter in 1963, or this book. So think about think about the timing in 1963. Okay, keep that date in mind as we go forward a little later. Um, and as far as his longevity in the field. So Hans came to America with his brother in 1938. He was 18 at the time, in part to get away from an increasingly aggressive Germany. Think about the era, right? And a
Hmm.
lot of things were changing. Germany was gearing up for a lot of bad things that were coming as far as World War II. He wanted no part of it. And to make this easier, his father had already lived in New York City for several years, so they had a pretty smooth transition, a place to land, some opportunities. While still in Vienna, he studied archaeology, ancient history, and a field called numismatics, which is the study of currency. And yeah, I had to look that up. No idea what it was. And when he came to America, he studied Japanese at Columbia University. Later in life, not long after, I should say, but later he earned a master's degree in comparative religion and then a doctorate in parapsychology at the London College of Applied Sciences. And in case you're wondering, parapsychology is the study of mental phenomena which are either excluded from or inexplicable by orthodox scientific philosophy. And these are things such as hypnosis, telepathy, mediumship, things like that.
Okay.
And yeah, I had to look that one up too. So now we know. And later on, even more later, he went to teach parapsychology at the New York Institute of Technology. So a learned man, a lot of different degrees and some very interesting directions. Um, and it's quite a weird kind of collection of stuff if you think about it. But this isn't where he got to the paranormal yet,
Okay.
overall. So after he was studying at Columbia University, Holzer indulged in infatuation with the theater back in the 1950s. He wrote sketches for the short-lived review Safari. That's got an exclamation point in it, and the book and music for Hotel Excelsior, about a group of young Americans in Paris, which opened in Provincetown, Massachusetts, and proceeded to go no further. Does that make it off Broadway? Kinda. Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to be on Broadway to get off Broadway, right? All right, never mind.
Well, things go on Broadway or start off Broadway, move to Broadway sometimes. So anyway,
Well, there was potential.
yeah.
And then later on, he also wrote theater reviews for the London Sporting Review. One of the things I find the most interesting about this man is in 1962, he married the Countess Catherine Genevieve Buxhoveden, who is the sixth generation direct descendant of Catherine the Great.
Okay.
So if you marry a countess, does that make you a count? Yeah,
Maybe.
eh, maybe. I don't know. I think it's how it works. So pretty interesting. And what an interesting opportunity, like to you would not expect.
Right.
Unfortunately, though, that marriage ended in divorce, but in 1986. And to
Okay.
wrap up the lineage of his lifetime, unfortunately, Holzer died of natural causes on April 26, 2009, in New York City. In addition to his ex-wife, Holzer is survived by daughters Alexandra Holzer and Nadine Widener, and five grandchildren. And Widener is the same spelling as mine, Chad. So
Oh, that doesn't always happen that way.
it doesn't. All right.
You
So we've learned that,
might be
we,
related.
we
I
could
mean,
be.
you know,
I gotta hop on Ancestry after we're done here and find out. So um, I really was like, whoa, cool. Um,
that's cool.
yeah, there's a lot of us though. So,
Right.
but I'm assuming it's the Philadelphia Wideners that we've discussed before, the Widener University clan. So a relative, perhaps. You see. All right. So we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about how he might have gotten involved in the paranormal. And the interesting thing is, he's credited his interest in the paranormal to stories of ghosts and fairies told to him by his uncle Henry as a young boy in Austria. He then shared those same stories with his classmates, and soon a note from his kindergarten teacher appeared at his home saying he was scaring other children with these stories. And if he didn't stop, he would not be able to come back. Kindergarten, sir, kindergarten. No, that's
Mhm.
pretty young. Uh, Holzer's real interest in the paranormal came in his teenage years. He credited the book Occultism in This Modern Age by Dr. T.K. Osterich as being a key catalyst. In the book, Dr. Osterich explores his views, presents case studies on psychic phenomena, and studies with scientific methods the possibility of such a reality or surreality as it may be. So it got the wheels spinning, and going back to some of the things that he has studied, that kind of fits into the direction, and it certainly drove him toward parapsychology.
Okay.
So Holzer was an innovator, and a couple things that he brought forward to the field in his nearly 50 years of paranormal investigations, and one of the things I think is most interesting is that every time he went out to the field, he had a tape recorder. Every investigation, everywhere he went, and he only used a Polaroid camera. The point of that is, he claims that he had no trust in equipment that measured electromagnetic energy or temperature because they were fallible.
Hmm.
Think about that.
Mhm.
He also claimed that a ghost hunt, as he liked to call them, was nothing without a good medium, and utilized one in each and every investigation as well. He felt this was key, as ghosts rarely materialize to make contact, but a medium can communicate with the spirit, making them the perfect intermediary between the two worlds. I've said this so many times, but no one's going to walk out of the wall and introduce themselves, right?
Right.
Well, but they may well be with us. He would not advise the medium of the location or history before arriving at it. He worked most often with Mrs. Ethel Johnson Myers, as she was his first choice to investigate with. But he also worked with Nancy Hendricks, Marina Bryan Agostini, Clara Howard, Dorothy Jackson, and Betty Ritter, among others. And he was always looking for more mediums to work with.
Okay.
He did research on the location before the investigation and on the evidence collected after it. So he would not be happy with just getting results. He would go follow up with that information and see what else he could find. He was commonly able to use historic and civil records to validate the information he had collected. So something would be presented and in the investigation, and he would go back and check records and likely it would be found to be true. He provided a written copy of his investigations to the New York City Police Department after each one.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes there were things that were discovered that were crimes, right? Literally.
Right. Right.
So, someone had died and they found out how. So, it's quite interesting. Now, whether they used it or not is probably another story, but I think it's quite interesting. He would interview the owners of a location being investigated and advise them of the outcome of it afterwards. Sound familiar?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He was a regular guest on local and national television programs and was a regular contributor to the program In Search of, starring Leonard Nimoy. Remember that one?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This exposure brought more people to the field and helped bring a legitimacy to the paranormal that it had not had before. So, Jed, does any of that stuff sound familiar to you?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Just like all of it, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
still how we do stuff. And this was back in the 1960s, 70s, etc. Long before, well, in the 60s, long before we were born, in the
Right.
70s, while we were just toddlers. So, I think it's fascinating that this was a pace setter for all of us in the kind of the standard playbook of how to
Right.
do an investigation. So, speaking of investigations, I'd like to read you a couple quick excerpts from The Ghost Hunter from 1963. So these were investigations that were in the late 50s, early 60s that were documented by the book in his book. The
Okay.
first is called The Riverside Ghost. Please help me find out what this is all about, pleaded the stranger on the telephone. I'm being attacked by a ghost. The caller turned out to be a young jeweler, Edward Carlanian of Paris, now living in an old apartment building on Riverside Drive in New York City. For the past 2 years, he had lived there with his mother. Occasionally, he heard footsteps when no one would have walked. 5 or 6 times he would wake up in the middle of the night to find several strangers in his room. They seemed to him people in conversation and disappeared as he challenged them on fully awakening. In one case, he saw a man coming toward him, and he threw a pillow at the invader. To his horror, the pillow did not go through the ghostly form, but slid off of it and fell to the floor as the spook vanished. The man obviously wanted to attack him. There was murder in his eyes, and Mr. Calanarian was frightened by it all. Although his mother could see nothing, he was able to describe the intruder as a man wearing a white uniform, like a cook, with a hat like a cook, and that his face was mean and cruel. On March 9th, I organized a seance at the apartment, and with a teacher at Adelphi College, Mr. Derkassian, and 3 young ladies who were also present, Mrs. Ethel Myers was the medium. Although she knew nothing of the case, Mrs. Myers immediately described a man and woman arguing in the apartment and said that there were structural changes, which Mr. Carlanian confirmed. Someone is being strangled. The man goes away. Now a woman falls and her head is crushed. They went to hide something from the family, Mrs. Meyer then stated, that someone had gone through a 12th floor window after being strangled, and that year was about 1910. In trance, the discarnate victim, Lizzie, took over her voice and cried pitifully for help. Albert, Mrs. Meyer's control, added that this was a maid who had been killed by a hired man on the wife's orders. Apparently, the girl had had an affair with a husband named Henry. The murderer was a laborer working in a butcher shop by the name of Maggio. The family's name was Brady, or O'Brady. The wife was Anne. After the seance, I investigated these data and found to my amazement that in 1812, City Directory listed an A. Maggio poultry and both an Anne Brady and Anne O'Grady. The first name was listed as living only 1 block away from the house. Oh, yes, Mr. Carlanian found out that a young girl accused of stealing had killed herself by jumping from that very room.
Wow.
Yeah. The next. And each of these have a title, which is, I think, fascinating too. Instead of just
Mhm.
being a log of things, they're basically stories. The next is called The Haunted Chair. Bernard Simon was a young writer with great interest in the occult, and very definitely a budding trance medium. He had done highly evidential trance work in a strange language that turned out, on later investigation, to be authentic medieval Inca speech of Peru, and he has had a number of astral projections as well as clairvoyant dreams. His wife Joan, who is known professionally on the stage under the name of Joan Lowe, and is a niece of screen luminary Joan Crawford, whom she greatly resembles, also has psychic talents in addition to her artistic ones. Over the past 2 years, we have shared a number of seance experiences. A few weeks ago, the Simons moved into a brand new building on West 12th Street. Shortly after their arrival, Bernard found himself drawn to a certain neighborhood antique shop where he saw a particularly peculiar shaped wooden chair. He immediately felt he must buy this chair, which was said to have been of Mexican Indian workmanship. He bought the chair, a throne like seat with a round back, arm pieces, and a strange base of crossed staves, to his newly furnished apartment, and thought no more of the particular force that made him acquire the unusual chair. A few days later, Bernard awoke rather suddenly in the middle of the night from a deep sleep. There was enough light in the small apartment to distinguish solid objects from each other. His eyes were drawn to the chair. In it sat an extremely tall man. His back was turned to the observer, but it was clear to Bernard that the man was unusually tall. Before he could get up and challenge the intruder, he had vanished into thin air. Both Bernard and Joan Simon continually felt a presence and told me about their strange guest. I promised to arrange for a seance soon and invited Ethel Johnson Myers to come with me, without, however, telling her any of the details of the case. On the morning of November 12th, I got an urgent telephone call from Joan. Something startling had just happened before her very eyes. Her husband, laughingly and tongue-in-cheek, remarked that he didn't believe in ghosts, and there was nothing to their visitor. With that, he got up and went to the kitchen, leaving Joan in the room. There was a small but fairly heavy metal figurine, a pagoda, placed in the middle of a small table near one of the walls. As Joan looked on, the figurine flew off the table and onto the floor with such violence that it broke in two. 3 days later, the seance took place. Mrs. Myers took the chair and within moments was in a deep trance. Suddenly, she sat bolt upright, and Indian words came out of her mouth, words that Bernard immediately recognized as the Quichua language, a dialect spoken in ancient Peru. Having learned a few words and prayer formulas himself, he managed to quiet the ghost. It appeared that the man was Haska, and he recognized Bernard as his son, apparently through reincarnation. He had been instrumental in getting Bernard to buy the chair, and then was anxious to make himself known. This having now been accomplished, followed a joyful embrace, and then the Indian was gone. The following day, all knocks and other strange noises that had accompanied the feelings of this presence prior to the seance were gone. The chair no longer moved and squeaked. All has been quiet in the Simonses since. Two examples of case,
Mhm.
and those are short ones. Most are very, very long, very, very detailed.
Right.
Many are repetitive as far as the case itself. There are many times when they've gone back to the same location and held multiple seances and investigations,
Yeah.
largely with the homeowner or the responsible party for the place, and largely with Mrs. Johnson,
Uh-huh.
or Mrs. Myers, I'm sorry, but in a few other cases, others as well, um, and clearly very, very well documented. That the tape, and this is tape recorder days. This is not digital stuff, so I can only
Right.
imagine the box of tapes that had to go along. If you're old enough to remember that, um, that wasn't easy. It's kind of like VHS tapes and watching movies.
Uh-huh.
Um, Bulky, clumsy, hard to use. Um, just really, really interesting, though. So, two examples. A
Mhm.
third, though, and the one we probably know most, we all should know about at least, and not really realizing that this was something that Hans Holzer had investigated, is the Amityville house. You've heard of this? The
Yep.
Amityville Horror, perhaps?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
So, when George and Kathleen Lutz began to talk about the supernatural experiences happening at their house in Amityville, New York, the public grew interested, and so did Hans. In 1977, he took Ethel Myers, a spiritual medium, to investigate. After viewing the house, Myers claimed an angry Native American chief had possessed Ronald DeFeo, the man who had occupied the house before the Lutzes, and had murdered his family. The house in Amityville and its history fascinated Hans. He spent a great deal of his time walking around the property and talking to the Lutzes about their experiences. So much so that he wrote 3 books on the subject: Murder in Amityville, The Secret of Amityville, and The Amityville Curse, and gave interviews devoted to it on TV and to film crews. Murder in Amityville and The Amityville Curse became the basis for the first 2 sequels of the Amityville horror film.
Okay.
So, access is a key thing here, right? You
Mhm.
know, in all of these cases and all of his work were people who were willing to let him come to their location and investigate. And you know how hard that is Chad. I mean, we're
Mhm.
investigators. We go out to the field. We have done private investigations for families and people, of their personal, property, as
Right.
much as we've done the public stuff that everybody can do with a ticket. And there is a great deal of trust that comes to letting us in their homes. You know,
Right.
um, and I like to think we've earned it. Through our track record, and obviously we don't share personal information about things we do that are not public events. That's a big part of it.
Mhm.
Um, one of the things that just amazes me is like how many times he has been in people's homes, um, through decades.
Right.
These are not. He's not gone off to some vacant prison somewhere, or some ran down mental hospital like a lot of us do,
Right.
because that's the public thing that we can get to. It's a ticketed event. It's got a window of time.
Mhm.
Someone's going to accept the responsibility of it. Liability. This is liability bringing him in, and many others he brings along. So I find it really fascinating, and I
Mhm.
think it's quite a quite a testament to how he cared for the work, that he was trusted so. So speaking of his work, I would be remiss if I did not pause here to talk about the travel channel show, The Holzer Files. Have you
Uh-huh.
had a chance to catch any of this show?
I've watched a couple episodes, yeah.
Okay. Well, good. Me too. A lot of them, actually. But the series is based on case files, photographs, and audio recordings from Holzer's investigation. So a trove of his information was found, reviewed through, and gone through, I should say. And then, a program was created. The team that was created from this primarily consisted of paranormal investigator Dave Schrader, psychic medium Cindy Kaza, and equipment technician Shane Pittman. Holzer's daughter Alexandra, sorry, also worked with the team, as did our friend April Bousset.
Okay.
So she appeared in at least one episode. So, um, and a good one at that. The team reopened many of Holzer's original cases and used his material to investigate known active locations to either replicate his experiences and potentially capture new information about the location and its paranormal activity since that time. Interestingly, Chad, in
Mhm.
most cases, Holzer's original work was validated by the use of our current technology techniques and tactics, which many are the same, right?
Right.
But technology is the key. Technology came into play in so many of these opportunities, and again, his disdain for it, um, is interesting because we're using it now, and I think he probably wouldn't be so disdainful if he knew what we had today versus what he was working with back then. So, a few fun facts. Um, he credited his long life, as he died at 89, to becoming a vegetarian at age 40 and vegan shortly after. He claimed to have never taken the prescription medication nor had any injections, never had a flu shot, anything like that.
Mm.
Amazing. He was an avid swing dancer, even into his 80s. He disliked the use of equipment when investigating, opting for just tape recorder and digital recorder as it advanced, and he usually had a camera. Um, And usually it was a Polaroid, and I assume it's because of being able to get instant images versus to having to have film developed as it would have been back then. You had to get down to the photo store and or have a
Right.
dark room in your home. So Polaroid cameras, instant gratification, right? A couple of minutes,
Mhm.
shake it off, shake it like a Polaroid. Outcast said. Um, so I think it's fascinating. You alluded to this earlier. Dan Aykroyd, you know, traditional classic actor and comedian. He was also a writer and star of the 1984 film Ghostbusters, says Holzer was his inspiration for the film. He told the Daily Mail in 2013, I became obsessed with Hans Holzer, the greatest ghost hunter ever, and that's when the idea for my film Ghostbusters was born. He also goes on to say that he had a deep fascination with law enforcement as well. So Ghostbusters are kind of a cross between policing,
Right.
spirits, and then also paranormal. So what an interesting merge there. Um, Some quotables and notables, some things that were said about Dr. Holzer. In all my years of ghost hunting, I have never been afraid, he told Leonard Nimoy on his television series In Search of, which again he was a consultant. After all, a ghost is only a fellow human being in trouble. He also said, I wasn't born a ghost hunter. I grew up to be one, from a very early upbringing, though. At the age of 3, in my native Vienna, my kindergarten teacher threatened me with expulsion from class for telling ghost stories to my wide eyed classmates. I was hot on the subject even then. And in an interview with Ghost Village back in 2005, Holzer was asked how he would like to be remembered, and he replied, "As a man who told the truth. I won't have a tombstone. Cemeteries are real estate wastes. And I don't believe in funerals of any kind. The sooner you burn the body, the better. It's just a shell. Mankind has a lot to learn." I find that
Hmm.
interesting. He was the king of all paranormal media, says Dave Schrader, lead investigator for Travel Channel's unscripted series, The Holzer Files. He was like the Howard Stern of his time and was on TV, wrote for movies, and wrote books. He became the first multimedia spokesperson for the paranormal, says Jeff Bellinger, author of more than a dozen books on the paranormal. He had the personality for it. He had the storytelling ability, and he was putting himself out there at a time when no one else was.
Hmm.
He was one of a very few here in the state to have been able to publish most of his findings into digestible books, says daughter Alexandra Holzer. He could also write fiction, poetry, sheet music, and compose. He wrote, produced, and directed some of his own projects, and even recorded 2 songs on a 45 record entitled Ghost Hunter. Of course. So, to conclude, there are a few things about Holzer's work that I find interesting and I tend to agree with. One is that he disliked the term supernatural because it suggested phenomena was outside of scientific definition. Rather than using the term belief, which he called uncritical acceptance of something you can't prove, he said instead that he focused on evidence.
Hmm.
He took a scientific and scholarly approach to how to work and present his findings. Given his disdain for technology of his time, I can't help but wonder how he would feel about the current technology of our day. And he was a storyteller at heart, and he used this skill to convey the humanity of the spirits he was looking to connect with and provide them with the dignity that they deserved. I think we can all relate to that in the field.
Yep. Mhm.
Before we discuss, let me cite some sources.
Okay.
So, there's several. TheWitchesAlmanac.com, NewYorkTimes.com, ThriftBooks.com, AllThat'sInteresting.com, ParanormalPopCulture.com, TheLineup.com, and Ghost Hunter by Hans Holzer. So, Chad, what do
Yes,
you
sir.
think? What you got? What's on your mind with this?
Is it paranormal or not? Well, no, I guess that's not right. We can't really go there with this one, can we? Um, he
I'd say
wasn't
yes,
in.
it is. Actually, it's very much so.
Oh, yeah, definitely, yeah. But not is it. But I mean, he was an innovator, obviously. He was way ahead of his time with a lot of this stuff. Now we know that through some of the digital not, or the stuff that Ron and Lourdes have talked about. This was paralleling some of those things with the radio technology, using radio to listen, but he didn't want to go that route.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, I think it's very interesting. We like you alluded to earlier, we are using many of these methods one way or the other today, to research, find out about the history. You learn all about it. It's not just what happens in that short time that you're there, but you have to build on that and work through it. And um, I know you talked about using the Polaroid camera. There's some people today who still swear by Polaroid cameras for paranormal investigating.
Sure.
That it's something completely different than a digital format.
Yep.
Um, it's one of those things that I'd like to look into, but finding a decent Polaroid camera anymore
Yeah.
is difficult.
Well, the world's changed, right?
Hmm.
Um, and the interesting thing is that that camera doesn't carry IR,
Right.
as most will. So you're relying on a flash, which creates a different light source,
Hmm.
um, and there's just a different visualization then of that image. Um,
Hmm.
so I do think it's a curious thing, and perhaps that's something that's going to have to find its way into one of our toolboxes at some point. I agreed.
Yeah.
Polaroids are still around. Don't be wrong.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They're still out there, and they had a comeback for a while there a few years ago, with kids and all, like kid versions of them.
Yeah, and there were all those little, like, 2 by 2.
Yep, these
Yeah,
little tiny, yeah,
uh-huh.
that old people can't see very well.
Yeah, yeah.
But in the traditional sense, they're still around.
Mhm,
So and that is technology. Whether he wanted to
mhm,
admit it or not, and so is a tape recorder. So he wasn't totally without. But the thing that I find most interesting is the prevailing use of mediumship. And we've talked about this before, and I'll
mhm.
say what I said then. I am not a sensitive individual. That does not mean I'm insensitive. I'm just unsensitive.
Right, no, I
Um,
know.
you know, that's a good joke, I guess. But I don't have the gift of sensitivity that I know you do and many of others do, and I take each and every person quite seriously. If they're experiencing something in an investigation, I rely on it to some degree because I lack it.
Mhm,
And it's the yin to the yang. Holzer does have, he claimed to have some sensitivity, but nowhere near enough to be something he would bring forward and use as evidence or credibility to evidence.
mhm,
But he believed firmly, very firmly, that you would get so much further with a medium. And the whole concept of every single case study, the medium he was working with had them, they were taken over by a spirit at that site. So, it strikes me there, and it is something that I find really, really interesting. Um, I like to explore more
mhm.
personally. How we work in the field. I think we have become a little reliant on technologies and not in communication. It's a
Right,
different thing, the direct communication stuff, and this goes to what Ryan and Lourdes are up to, and Tony and Cherie Rathman are up to. Uh, with having the radio connection, the digital voice connection.
right,
Um, that's the same idea. It's just a different, slightly different. It's not a mediumship there,
right.
but it is a direct connect. And the amazing work that's been done so far, through
Mhm,
Staticom and the digital seance experience. Both sides of that are truly fascinating to me. But it all started there with Holzer back in 19. This was in the late 50s when he was starting his work, and to the 60s.
right,
Uh, to get his first book out. I do want to note this, and I think this is amazing. 140 books on the paranormal. You saw a couple of, you saw like 18 in the slides.
right.
Um, so like a whole nother gazillion more.
Yeah, I
And
didn't realize it was that many that he had written.
let's say that he had a 50-year career. Okay,
Mhm.
the late 50s to 2000s. That would be three and a half books a year on average that he wrote. Chad, have you read three and a half books in a year?
Not lately. I used to read a lot of books, but no.
I'm kidding. But
No, but
there's people, I know people who don't read three and a half books a year, 3 books a year, not even a
right,
half, maybe a half a book. You start and
right.
you don't finish. That is that
But to write that
volume,
much, I mean, to write and to edit and to, like,
and then work other projects. Like you're
yeah.
out in the field working, you're doing the medium work,
Mhm,
media, not medium, media work that he was doing. I mean, that is volume that is just epic.
mhm,
Um, when I was thinking about this earlier this afternoon, what came to my mind is the musical Hamilton. Okay, the
mhm.
song where you're writing like you're running out of time.
Right,
That part of it. Like Hamilton was a fervent author of things. He wrote everything down.
right,
It's well documented, and all the letters and all the pieces that he wrote. And that to me is Holzer, and both were dedicated. Right, they
right.
were committed to their field. They knew what they were supposed to do. They were in and going, and nothing stopped them. And that drive is impressive. I think it's fascinating.
Hmm,
But 3.5 books on average a year, and
mhm,
that's saying it was 50 years. It might have been less, might have been a little more. So even
mhm.
so, it's amazing.
So David has a comment here. One of the first paranormal books he ever read as a kid was about Amityville and the Defoe murders by Holzer.
The Fayos, yep.
DeFeos, yeah.
Yeah, and there's 3. of those books alone. So, right, that's 1 year's worth of authoring, uh, on average.
Mhm.
Uh, a lot of time was spent in these places, and there's a few episodes in the book where it's probably over the course of a year or more that there were a dozen investigations or seances, as he called them, because he had a
Mhm.
medium. Going and as well as anybody, Chad, the ability to go back to a place like we have the opportunity at Booby's Brewery in Mountjoy, PA, as our home base,
Right.
to go back and go back and go back, as we did before when we were at the Haldeman Mansion, as well as the host team there, going back and back and back, you have a different connection. You get a
Mhm.
difference, your relationship with the spirits of that location. And there's nothing wrong with one-offs. We all do them. I'll be
Right.
doing one this weekend. You did one last, you'll do another one this weekend, perhaps maybe with opportunity for more, with the location, the private location. But, you you don't know what you're going to get when you walk
Right.
into that situation. You don't have time to build rapport, and build trust. And I think that's really what this is all about, is
Mhm.
trust. This,
Yep.
this Holzer was a man who could be trusted and earned that trust with whom he worked with.
Right.
And it didn't hurt that he was a firm believer in wearing something nice to go to an investigation. And think about the era, right? Like
Right.
my grandparents, who would be his age, were my grandfather, when he wasn't at work, was always wearing slacks and some kind of a collared shirt. It was just his attire. you know.
Mhm.
But Holzer would be, not dressed to the nines, not wearing a suit per se, but he would be in what we would probably call business casual attire today
Right.
to all of his investigations, because he felt that was something that was respectful to the spirits that he and his medium would encounter. So
Mhm.
I think that's fascinating too.
So no blue jeans and t-shirts for him? Is that what you're
Nope.
saying?
Yeah, shorts and flip flops. He was not that guy.
Yeah. And Dave said the spirits get more comfortable with you and your equipment as you're there more often.
Yes, completely agree.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Which is it's a respect both ways
Yep,
at that point. So,
absolutely. Well, I'll go back to the patience is a key word to all of this. The
mhm.
patience of being able to communicate and do it in a manner that's respectful and dignified, because you're still dealing with a person,
Right.
and it's not a performance opportunity. It's not, there's no stage to this, and maybe some are doing it that way. I don't know,
Yeah.
I guess. But as a paranormal investigator, I want to have a meaningful contact with whomever may be on the other side of that place and time that I'm in.
Right.
Whoever's there in the room. I don't want it to be a show, and
Mhm.
that's the hardship of doing public investigations, right? We
Mhm.
talk about it all the time, and I said it earlier in this episode, even. But people expect to see a ghost walk out of the wall, and
Right.
or all the lights to come on and off and all this stuff, that is such a Hollywoodization of what it's like being in the paranormal field. And it's just not. Sometimes it's just sitting quietly and listening and having a normal conversation and seeing what happens from it.
Mhm.
That some of my best successes are there. um, and I don't know that that's the right way or the wrong way, but that's the way I feel good about doing it. And it's and if it's not your way, that's great.
Right.
Whatever you wish, but just treat whomever may be with you with the respect and courtesy you would if someone was physically in the room.
Right. Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff there,
Yeah.
and a lot of fun with it. You know, the
You
cool thing is, Alexandra Holzer is still working in the field. And I know that the Holzer Files has kind of ended, but you never know with reboots and stuff. I mean,
Mhm.
it's not like they'll have enough material, uh, you know,
True.
to go back to it. Um,
Mhm.
and many of those episodes, if you haven't seen the show, it's available on Max. If you have Max, all the episodes are there, and sometimes you can find it on the Travel Channel if you dig hard enough, or they reboot a couple or rerun a couple episodes every once in a while. But it's really worth digging into it.
Right.
Um, and I give credit to the team that they created. They are good investigators. They're really good people.
Mhm.
They're out there in at Paracons and such too.
And
Um,
they do the legwork. It's
yeah,
not just the show for the TV. It's like they definitely dig into it.
they pay respect,
Yeah.
and I think that's the most important thing. Is this is a lifespan of work
Mhm.
that can't just be said it was this or that. It's such a nuanced thing. Dr. Holzer was a celebrity as well as he
Mhm.
was an innovator, and as much as he was a person, like a normal dude. So it's just so fascinating, like all of this stuff balled up into this person. Uh,
Mhm.
I wish I would have had an opportunity to know him or meet him
Mhm.
or talk to him, or you know, it
Yeah.
wouldn't have been over drinks. It would have been over coffee. I can say that, 'cause he took coffee everywhere he went. But I'm good with that.
Yeah. So,
So
well, and you saw earlier, we got a quote from or a note from our friend Jenny,
yes,
who
yeah,
really
Jenny.
likes Hans Holzer, and their team uses one of his quotes on their shirts, and his daughter actually gave them permission to do that, which I think is pretty
Yeah,
cool.
that was
So,
cool. And an offline message or advance of the episode message. So Jenny, when you see this, I love to see that shirt someday. So send us a picture if you can. Um, that's super cool.
yeah.
Or if you're at the Ritz Saturday, maybe I'll see you there. Uh, so, Chad,
Mhm.
that's all I have, and
Okay.
I appreciate the
Hey,
opportunity to dig into this.
and it was well done, Jamie. You did it was a lot. I'm sure you didn't cover everything
No, I
because there
skipped
is
a lot.
so
I
much.
skipped a lot of stuff. I
Um,
have books on order though, so they're coming in this week. Yeah,
uh-huh.
I'm not. I don't think I'm going to read all 140 or so, but
I
I'm
think
certainly more.
I
I'm
think
interested to get into more of his stuff.
it sounds like a challenge, Jamie.
It
Can you
does sound
read?
like a challenge. Yeah, it's my summer reading program, right? If I read every book, I get a stamp for each one, and I get a pizza. Is that how it used
Oh,
to be?
see, I was gonna go there. You remember the book
Oh
with
yeah,
pizzas? Yep, yep.
yeah, of
Not
course.
everybody does, but
You know, yeah. I'm food motivated. I'm good for that. Absolutely.
uh,
Give me a book and a pizza.
uh-huh.
Cheers.
So cool.
Yeah, I've got a small stack of on my nightstand already, so he's unfortunately he's gonna have to get in line. Um, but yeah, I'm definitely in for more information, more material from Dr. Holzer. So
Well, that's good. Yeah.
if anybody wants to borrow Ghost Hunter, just let me know. I'm all for sharing, so um, happy to.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
So,
nicely done, Jamie.
well, thank you. So, what's going on with us coming up?
What do we have coming up? Well, what we have scheduled right now, that we've put out there, Green Children of Woolpit is next week.
Okay.
Um, you don't know anything about that, do you, Jamie?
No, I do not. I really
Okay.
don't. And I'm not going to dig into it. So
Okay. All
I'm
right.
gonna be enthralled with everyone else.
Okay. Grimm's Fairy Tales the week after that.
Hmm.
Rendlesham Forest Incident.
Yep.
Then this is first time we've got this up on the screen. New Orleans, America's Most Haunted City. You're
Do
going
you
to
know
be
what?
tackling that.
Do you know what March 4th is?
That would be Mardi Gras, wouldn't it?
Yes, sir.
So,
Woo! Good
um,
timing. See how we did that?
I
See how we
noted,
did
yeah, yeah.
that?
The week after that, I'm gonna jump into Leap Castle. No pun intended. Um, some
Oh, that's
things we
so bad. It's funny.
Yeah, some things that we don't have listed here, that I'm working on is we're connecting with someone who's got a newer space in the area, or well, in Pennsylvania, called the Das House. We've connected with the team that runs that, so we're going to try to have them on in the near future.
Okay.
And Jamie, I know this one might interest you because it's sort of a personal connection for me. I got a slideshow from my father of things that have happened at his house that he's documented over the years.
Yes.
And I'm
It's
going to,
great.
there's not many visuals for that one, obviously, but he's got 17 different things listed that I'm going to try to compile. And it may be more than one, maybe it end up being more than one episode, but I'm going to try to work through that
Yeah.
and compile it. But he's got 17 things at least
Hey,
that he's documented.
listen, just channel your inner Steve Dills. It'll take 2.5 hours and we'll be fine. Okay.
Uh
It's
huh.
all good.
So, anyway, I'm sort of looking forward to digging into that just because it's such a
Okay.
personal thing for me where I
Of course.
grew up, and um, yeah, Yeah, it's pretty
Well,
interesting.
that's the cool thing, like, when you get to do something that you've been involved in, you
Uh-huh.
know, and obviously it's got you here, so,
Uh,
that's really super cool.
I'm not sure what Bert means by this.
I don't either, but
I mean, I
you
think
need
it's
to
maybe
know.
the 2.5 hours. Maybe we'll go with
Well,
that.
maybe that, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, the thing here's the deal, Bert. You get to get up and go to the bathroom or and get a snack or do whatever. We don't. So
So
trust me, we don't want to do 2.5 hours either. But if it happens, it happens.
yeah, no, I won't do that. I definitely would break that one up. But so anyway, that's sort of what I've got. Oh, um, anyway, that's what I'm sort of working on in the background, and we've got some stuff coming up. With Tala, we're going to be there,
Yeah,
so we're going to do a preliminary and a post on that.
yeah, it's getting
Um,
ever closer.
speaking of which, the Tala post show or post investigation is scheduled for our 100th episode.
Yeah.
We
And
are at
tonight, by the
90
way,
right
tonight is 90, sir.
tonight is 90. I did look it
You look
up.
good for 90.
Yeah, you too. So anyway, what else we got going on? We're still booking privates at Booby's Brewery. If you are if you're interested in that, reach out to Melissa. It's mkeller0606 at gmail.com. So it's definitely worth it doing it as an individual, not as a public. It's a whole different experience.
Yeah. If you have
Uh,
a team of your own and you don't want to, mingle, if I can not say it
mhm,
as politely as humanly possible there, but you
mhm,
don't want to share the space with others, private investigation is a great opportunity to have the whole place to yourself
yep,
and you know, do as you wish.
yep. Yeah, I see Bert's question here. Have I ever investigated my dad's house? Um, investigated, no. Experienced things there, yes. My father has strictly forbidden me to investigate. Um, not until he's not there anymore, I think is pretty much how it's been. Like when he's not there, then I'm more than, I can, I can, I can do things, but not until he's not living there because he has experienced enough over the years. He doesn't want to stir things up and experience anymore.
And
Um,
that is fair, I believe, right? That's why
so,
I mean this is the rule of in the field. You never
uh,
investigate your own home. So
right.
I totally understand that. But yes, Burt road trip and it's not far away. So
No.
if and when and you know what, Chad, with all due respect, I understand that, you know,
Hmm.
your dad not being there and I hope that that time does not come for a very, very long time still.
Right. Me,
So
me too. So, but I was there this weekend when on my because he lives near, close to Gettysburg, so I was there
yeah.
Friday night, and then I went back down Sunday, and they had an issue with their power. He had an issue with the power. Somebody must have hit a pole or transfer, and
Okay.
all of a sudden, I thought things were happening because the power didn't go out. It cut to about half voltage, and with LED lights and fluorescent lights, there were fixtures where like one light was on half and the other one was flashing on and off, and like
You're
one
having
light
a
bulb
moment.
one light bulb was on and other light bulbs were off, like in the same fixture. It was like, what is going on here? And then we realized what it was, and so yeah, it made it interesting. Which is the funny thing about that is when we were prepping for my mom's memorial service, we had a very similar experience, except the power hadn't gone out. Like all the lights, like we were all gathered around the kitchen table going through photos and things like that, and all of a sudden the lights just started flickering.
Wow.
And then
Well,
we all looked at each other, sort of acknowledged it, and it went back to normal. And it was just like, wow. So
that's amazing.
yeah. Again, it's energy that you're putting into it. Like it's the whole thing. So
Yes. Exactly.
anyway, I don't want to give too much away.
Sure, sure.
um, so we've got some public investigations coming up, February 22nd, March 22nd, are public investigations. Tickets are limited to those. We only sell so many, so if you're interested, get tickets early because they will go fast
They are starting to
closer
go
to the date.
already.
Yep.
Yeah, the February 22nd date is starting to sell already, so,
Yep.
um, come join
uh,
us.
yep, April 10th is when we will be at Tala Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum.
Yep.
There was a slight change in our schedule here. On April 26th, it will be a normal public investigation at Booby's Brewery. And the investigation in May is when we're going to do our first Para Unity thing, which we will have more details about. I know who the other team is that we're pairing up with, so we will talk about that closer to the date.
Yep.
But it should be a good experience. Stacy and Gary Smith. I don't know if you've ever met him, Jamie, but
I've
I've
not.
I've met
I've not had
Stacy.
the I'm aware of both. I just
Mhm.
haven't had the opportunity to meet them in person.
But we'll dig into that a little bit closer, and hopefully we'll be able to get them on for a show before we work together. So
Yep.
that'd be fun. And then the ways of finding us. You found us here on Facebook or YouTube. There's TikTok, there's Instagram. You can always email us at paranormallenspodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, uh, Audible, Apple Podcasts. Jamie, we were up at over 1,200 streams, which,
Mhm.
for us, I'm pretty happy for that.
Well, there's
So,
more than anything more than one is pretty impressive for us. So
uh-huh. So, and then you can find all those links assimilated together at Linktree Paranormal Lens. If you go to Linktree and search for Paranormal Lens, you will find us, and it'll be all together there. So,
absolutely, and we pop up as Paranormal Lens on all of those as first search. So
hmm
pretty easy to find us.
hmm
And if you're here listening to us now, and on this live event, and these are always live, so you never know what you're going to get. But you want somebody to know about us. Feel free to share.
hmm
Get some more folks and friends and family, all that good stuff involved. We're always happy to talk to as many as we can. We talk all the time, right?
hmm
But if there's somebody out there who's interested, let them know, and let's see where it goes. I say this because I had an off the cuff idle conversation with a coworker the other day, and it slipped that I do paranormal stuff, and he's like, really? And he told me of a experience he had in my office with the founder of our company, who has passed on a few years ago.
Uh-huh.
Being here one day while he was late in the evening, as he was the last one out, he saw him standing clear as day, at a space where he would have been,
Uh-huh.
and back in his time. So, and that led him to watching, starting to watch the podcast. So I'm
hmm
really excited by that, because you just never know,
Yep.
the
Well,
opportunity is out there for everybody. So
yep.
we'll
I was
share.
watching when I was Friday when I was investigating down in Gettysburg. I was talking to Marianne about it. Somehow we got on the subject of stuff, and I said, "Oh, I do a podcast with a good friend of mine," and she goes, "Oh, what's the podcast?" Because I want to check it out, and I told her, "Yeah, I consider you a good friend, Jamie. Okay,
Wow,
so at
I
least
made the list. Yes.
I say that on the show."
Oh,
Anyway,
yeah. All
so
right, fine.
anyway, Marianne's like,
Check
"Well,
in the mail. Checks in the mail.
So Marianne's like, "What's the name of the show?" And I told her, and she goes, "Oh, I listened to you guys. I think I listened to you and looked it up, and she was already following us." So
Sweet.
yeah.
Very cool.
So
Well, and we thank everybody. Like we say this all the time. We wouldn't do this without you, and we really wouldn't. We'd have been done a long time ago. Thanks for coming along. Thanks for the engagement here
Mhm.
in this live event, but also through the week. And I say this all the time too. But if there's anything you want us to cover, let us know. It's
Yep.
really easy to find us. The paranormal lens at gmail.com. Email, just shoot us a message, say, hey, you should cover something, whatever it is. We've done we've public, gosh, that's not right. We have done listener submissions before. We will do them again.
hmm
It's really easy when you self-produce. You can move your schedule any way you want to. So, we're not obligated to what you see in these episodes coming up, although we will do them too, of course.
Right.
But if there's something that's near and dear to you, or something you're aware of that we're not, or something that's happened to you, as your own personal story,
hmm
we're happy to bring it in and share it. And we can have you come on and talk about it.
Yeah, definitely.
Uh,
We'd be happy to have guests on. We were actually talking about a couple that were planning on lining up in the
yeah.
future here. So.
Yeah, so it's very very simple to do, very easy to do. You can comment in one of the episodes. This episode, if you're catching us on the streaming services, just leave a note. Leave a review. If it's not something, you can leave a message in the episode. As far
Mhm.
as directly, Apple doesn't let you do that per episode, but they do let you leave a review. We'll see it either way and anyway. So touch base. We're happy to jump into it and see what we can do to bring it to light. And
Mhm.
Yeah, like we're
Yep.
all friends here.
Yep. Follow, like, all those fun things.
Yeah,
So,
all good.
so, well, anything else, Jamie?
Sir, I'm good. It's I can't believe we've gone a little over an hour here. So, time flies when you're having fun. That's for
Hmm.
sure.
And Mountjoy is better when you stay over.
It's more fun when you sleep over. Come
I,
on,
I you know,
come on.
yeah.
One of these weeks you're gonna get it.
No, I'm not. You know that.
I thought you were gonna put a note on your monitor. I mean, seriously.
I was, but I forgot.
All right, this pack of post-its is coming to your house.
Or is and each one of them is going to say the same thing. So no
Same
matter what.
thing. It's like a flip book.
So,
Oh
all
crap!
right.
I'm showing my age. Dang it! All
On
right.
that note, we should probably get out of here. Let everybody get on with their Tuesday night or whatever time they're listening to
Whatever
this.
day it is when you get there. Yep, absolutely.
So everybody, we thank you. We hope to see you next week, and have a great week.
Yeah. Go birds.
All right.
Woo!
Good night.